not giving me music? I thought there was going to be music. What's up, everybody? Welcome to Signature Real Estate Group for our Tuesday sales meeting. Thank you for those of you who are here today, and thank you for those of you who have tuned in. Today, we are going to be doing part 2 of business planning. Last week, we had Chris talk about, yay, Chris is cheering for himself. But Chris talked about some of the things that you should be doing to get new business, to get old business, to connect with your referrals. That was right? Did I listen properly? Perfect. So last week was about that. This week we're going to have Todd talking about numbers. And I'm not going to steal his thunder. I'll let him talk about it later. But in the meantime, do we have any wants and needs? What's up, Chris? What's
I just reduced the listing in front by $50,000.
Price improvement by $50,000 on a property.
Those acres are worth less now than they were yesterday.
Okay, so what's the price on it?
It's basically $1.1 million.
$1.1 million for how many acres?
17 acres of water rights.
17 acres.
3,000 square foot house.
Oh, with a 3,000 square foot house.
You could pick up the house and move it somewhere in Las Vegas and it'd be worth more money too. So any one of those are okay.
How about here in Nevada?
There's that. 17 acres for 1 million-ish plus.
Yes.
Yes.
I'll go.
Here.
I'm about to list 18 acres.
Hold on. Wow.
Listing 18 acres in Mesquite. Developer is selling 113 lots there. So basically he'll release 12 lots at a time and subordinate to construction loans. If anyone has contact with developers, especially land acquisition people with developers, please let me know.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks.
All right. What else we got? 2 big pieces of parcel that we can subdivide and sell off, develop. Nobody else. No one wants and needs?
Adam
Awesome.
has a townhome.
Adam has a
Adam's out of
townhome.
town.
No,
He's
he
got
has
a condo
town-
he'd like
he
to
has
sell.
a condo over a desert inn there.
900 square feet, 3-story, got a loft.
What is happening right now? Okay, I've lost the room. So I'm
New air
gonna
conditioning.
stop it, all of you. Prosperity Lending, Jason Mavora will come on up and give us some mortgage updates, please.
Thank you very much.
Welcome, thank you.
Appreciate it. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Morning.
So, who remembers what down payment assistance is?
Yes.
That's good. Something that's been kind of gone this year because we all know how the market's been. If you have a down payment assistance person and you're not making an offer that's way more than listing price, what was the point, right? Well, those times, as we know, we've been talking about at the meetings the last time, have been changing a little bit. So I wanted to do a little refresher for Home is Possible. Did you guys know that Home is Possible does some really cool things for teachers and veterans? Does anybody know what they do? Excellent, I picked a good topic then since nobody knows it. Did you know that a veteran can get a still really good interest rate and get a ton of money back so that they don't have to pay 1 cent? They can still write a full price offer and literally walk out without paying a dime if they're a veteran. Did you know that a teacher can get an extremely good below market rate and get $7,500 towards their closing costs just for being a Clark County teacher in here? So we've got some really, really strong things that you can do with the down payment assistance. Now that we're getting closer to the part where full price offers can work, you might have some new borrowers, and then what's everybody's opinion on how rent's doing? Is rent going up or down?
Up.
Do you think that a lot of the down payment assistance people are renters? Might be a good marketing piece to send out to all of your renters that, hey, people are accepting full price offers again. Hey, there's some assistance that can make this work. And oh, by the way, if they're getting forced out, if they're paying, which I hear this story constantly now, I was paying $1,200 a month. Now my landlord wants it to be $1,600 a month. Oh my goodness, I need to do something. Well, if they're going to go get a new rental because they give up 16 twice is $3,200 plus a deposit that might be, call it $2,000, about $5,200, right? That's pretty much what they're going to be coming in with after down payment assistance. So if you're targeting renters and you're looking for people that might work, down payment assistance might be something that they can help you with. So, I'm Jason. Oh, yes.
What's the limit on a DAP program, price-wise?
Well, it's interesting. The limit's actually changed quite a bit. It used to be a max loan size of $400,000, but that's kind of gone. But the only flip part to that is that there's still a maximum income that you can make. For conventional loans out there, for FHA loans, you can make $105,000 or lower, which is way more. But FHA still has its max loan limit. It's still at about, I want to say, was it 340? 362, that's, I can never remember the exact number. I was saying the 350, 360 range. So that kind of changes that. And then conventional loans, those the area median income. So there's really not that much of a limit is really the truth, except for the programs themselves. If you're only allowed to make a certain amount of money, call it 60,000 for conventional, you're only going to afford a certain amount of money. So it's not as much what the product allows, it's more kind of what the numbers say. Work for it. But I'd say you're usually going to want to keep from $400,000 to lower. It's going to be about your max with these products. Any other questions? Cool. Thank you guys for the time. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Jason.
Thank you, Jason. All right. A couple of reminders. We have on Saturday, the owner of our company is going to be inducted or installed. I don't know what you call it. Installed, huh? Impeached. Is going to be installed as the president of the Las Vegas Realtor Association. So if you haven't bought your tickets yet, it's too late. Just kidding. You can still buy your tickets. We will figure it out. So we have a couple of tables for signature. Most of those are filled, but if you just call the association, 784-5000, you'll be able to buy some tickets. And you can bring your +1, and they do not have to be realtors. So you can bring non-realtors.
Can I say something?
Brandon
I
wants to
just
say
want to
something.
thank everyone for their support. We've got 7 full tables already. So
Nice. That tables of 5 or 10? Tables of 10. That's awesome.
That's really cool.
That's amazing. Let's make it 8. Let's make it 9. Let's make it 10. Let's do 10.
You're going to cause them to freak out at the board.
Oh,
They're
got it.
having a hard
Okay.
time right now.
So if you are looking to buy tickets, let's take that number a little bit extra and call 784-5000. Go get your tickets for Brandon's installation this week. We also have, put it in your calendars, you guys, December 7th will be our holiday party. It will be at Springs Preserve. This is your save the date. It'll be at Divine Cafe again. We've had an incredible time. Shelly, are we going to have karaoke this year?
Ellie, are we going to have karaoke this year?
Yes, ma'am.
We're having karaoke again this year. So, yes, Chris.
We have ugly holiday sweater.
Yes, we will do ugly holiday sweater as well. Sounds great. See what you're missing out. If you don't show up, you don't get to make decisions like this. So ugly sweater as well as, and you can dress up nice if you really want to, but ugly sweaters or regular sweater, sure, and karaoke. December 7th, it'll be about 6 p.m. at Divine Cafe at the Springs Preserve. And then we have our Thanksgiving potluck, which will be held in this office on the 17th of this month. That's in 2 weeks. So make sure what time is that at, Janet?
11.
At 11 a.m. we will have that. And then at 1 o'clock, Shelly's doing Wheels Up in our West office at the Spanish Ridge office. So make sure you sign up for that. Details are in our Agents of Signature page. Did I forget anything?
Nope.
Yes, Janet.
In the newsletter that went out over the weekend, I listed all the dates of everything that's happening through December 7th.
Okay, thank you. Janet's got everything in the newsletter, so read your newsletter, people. All right, with that, are you ready? Never ready.
2 or 3 more minutes.
2 or 3 more minutes. All right, I can talk about all sorts of random stuff. What questions do you guys have for me?
Where's Todd?
Where's he needs 2 or 3 more minutes.
Just play music.
He's-
and everybody will.
All right, here you go.
Does this work? Can you hear me?
Good job, Tom.
Can I not stand over there? You guys stand over there. I gotta move this, turn that off. You're good. Sorry, I didn't know all this was gonna be technical. All right, so everybody got a phone on them?
Yeah.
Got a piece of paper?
Yeah.
No. You got a
Selling
phone?
pages for $1.
Chris is selling pages for
For my
$1.
business plan.
How about a pen? Pen, paper,
Selling those for $2.
and your phone? You got those over here for $2. So today we're going to talk about numbers. You're going to want to write some stuff down. You're going to want to figure out. The goal today is, let me ask this question. If,
That mic is live.
I turned it off. Are we good? Can you hear me? Okay. Can they not hear me online?
Yep.
All right, good. All right, so the goal today, which, by the way, is never exciting there only about 1% of the people in the world get excited about numbers, right? They're sometimes hard to figure out. It's sometimes like, how do you add this to that to get this and figure that out? So I hope to help you kind of get through that today. And at the end, I want you to know two things. The first thing I want you to know is how much money do you want to net in your pocket next year? Not how much do you want to make, but how much do you actually want to put in your pocket? Like, what's the goal for your net income for next year, 2022? Does anybody know that number? In your head, you've already thought about it, you've spent some time trying to decide like how much money. Does anybody want to share? I love to hear some of these numbers if anybody would like to share.
300.
300,000. Okay. How long have you been in the business?
6 years.
Okay. Anybody else? Couldn't hear you. 500,000. Okay, so like the net 500,000 in your pocket. Okay. Anybody else? That's it. We got 300. We got 500. This should be exciting. You guys got calculators? Turn your phone sideways because that'll give you more space in the calculator to calculate numbers. All right, so here's what I want you to understand about planning your business for 2022 or any year, and that is this is not the time to be over exuberant. Is that the right word? Like, this is a time maybe to be a little more conservative, to kind of think about what you've done in the past. And so here's going to be my first question to you. How many closings, how many properties did you actually close this year? Write that number down. How many closings have you had in 2021? Okay, does everybody have that number?
Yes.
Okay, how many of those closings were buyers and how many were sellers? So, for example, if you had 20 closings, did you have 10 buyers and 10 sellers? Did you have, out of that 20, were 15 of them sellers and 5 of them buyers? Think about that for a minute. Write that number down. You're going to need to know that number. And then the last number you kind of need to think about are, what is your average sales price? As I noticed as a brand new agent in the business, my average sales price was typically a bit lower than the average sales price in the valley. But as I've been in the business longer, my average sales price kind of goes up every year. Right? So you need to know what your average sales price is, because if you're trying to make $100,000 and you sell $1 million homes, how many $1 million homes do you have to sell compared to the average home of $400,000? More than double, right? Or less than double. You got to sell more $400,000 house. So we need to know your average sales price. So those are the three things I really need you to know. You probably don't know them today. You might not have exact numbers, but as we go through this formula, you can write that down and then you can recalculate later exactly what that number looks like. So again, how many closings did you have and how did they split? How many buyers, how many sellers? Because that's going to tell us what your percentage on what side of the business you work on. And here's why that's important. What's the typical commission split or co-op in MLS right now? 2%, I'm hearing, 2.5%. It's less than what we would like, right? I don't know what you would like, but it's less than what I would like. So I, for some reason, have done a really good job of protecting my commission income on listings a lot better than I can protect it on the sales side. Not that I'm not able to protect the sales side because I use a buyer broker agreement, but even sometimes that kind of takes a hit depending on what happens in the transaction, right? But for some reason on my listing side, I'm able to protect more of what I'm going to get out of my listing. So it's important to know buyers and sellers. What is your average sales price on the buy side and the listing side, because they're going to be different. If in a real world, in a good world, you'll have people who are selling. Your sellers will sell at this price and they'll move up, right? So they'll sell a $400,000 and buy a $500,000 or $600,000. So your sales price could be a bit higher. And you could be in a situation like myself, a little bit older. My circle of influence, my friends and people that I live with, that I'm around every day, they're doing the opposite of that now. I was just at the doctor this morning, and my doctor is a real good friend of mine, and he looked at me and he said, "I don't have any more kids at home." And I said, "Well, then you and I need to talk because you probably need to downsize your house." He's like, "Yeah, that's exactly why I just told you that." So he's probably going to be going from $500,000 or $600,000 or $700,000 down to maybe something a little bit cheaper. So your sales price amount can change depending on kind of what world you live in and where you're working. Make sense?
Yep.
Any questions? All right, I'm going to make it easy for everybody. I'm going to say that we're going to calculate today $100,000 net income in my pocket. Let me ask you a question. And you don't need to raise your hand, but I want you to think about this. If I told you today that I'd write you a check for $100,000, you could cash it on January 1st of 2022, and all you had to do was talk to X amount of people a day, and you got to keep the entire $100,000 I gave you, would you do it? Does that sound somewhat easy to do? It's not a very big number. I mean, you don't have to talk to like 100 people every single day, but there's going to be a certain number of people that you've got to talk to about real estate. Now, how you're going to talk to them, that's kind of the thing that we don't know. Because some of us, what are some of your strongest lead sources? Chris talked about lead sources last week. There's a lot of them. I mean, it's not like we only have one or two ways to prospect, right? We can prospect lots of different ways. What's your strongest? What are some of the strongest in here? So your database, okay, someone said Sphere. What else?
Open houses.
Open houses, okay. Like mine's not open houses, by the way. Mine's Sphere. My highest is my Sphere. Medi, Sphere, okay. Anybody doing anything else besides open houses? Anybody doing any door knocking? Where's Mike? So door knocking, I seen a hand kind of go up there. I'm not sure if that means I'm halfway door knocking or, I don't know. So door knocking is another way. Okay, so phone calling, actually prospecting for people you've never met. Wow, that's weird. You really do that? That's crazy. You should all be doing that, by the way. That should be one of the pillars of your business, but we can talk about that another time. All right, so how you're going to have these conversations on a day-to-day and a weekly basis is another thing that you'll need to decide going into 2022. What are going to be the pillars of your business? Chris's last week were your sphere of influence or your database, as he was referring to kind of both of those. And then the second one was hunting. Like Chris, one of his pillars is hunting. Does anybody know what hunting is? That's hardcore prospecting, right? That's like, is anybody going to participate today, or are you just going to let me lecture the entire time? Serious, this is going to get really boring. How much time do we have? This is really good. Oh wait, hold on, I got a text. No, I'm just kidding. All right, so Chris's other pillar was what? Does anybody remember? No, not you, Chris. Does anybody remember the other pillar?
Farming.
Farming. So who here picked a farm in the last week? Okay. So if you haven't picked a farm, if you're not working in a farm, that's definitely something you should be thinking about. Understand that hunting is a short term, farming is long term, longer term. Now, I'm not saying you can't get a deal out of farming in the first couple of weeks, because you might walk into the right place at the right time and you might get that deal. But typically farming takes a little bit longer than hunting or prospecting does. Okay, so you'll figure that out. All right, so let's look at 100,000. How do I get this up on the screen? It's closed. All right, it's my computer. There we go. All right, so let's start. Can everybody see the screen? I've got a little spreadsheet that I created here. Let's just say that my net income before taxes is going to be $100,000. Any questions? Is anybody mad about that number? Or do you want a different number? I'm happy to use whatever you want. What? He's messing with me for sure. All right, and class is now over. We're done. Okay, so our net income is $100,000. Let me ask this. Anybody in here actually have an accountant or have somebody who tracks their numbers over the year? What do you spend yearly on expenses? 26%. Anybody else have a number? I have 30 on the board, as you can see. But here, say it again.
Well, I'm about 30.
Okay, about 30. How about those of you that are going, I don't know, have no idea. I have no clue what my expenses are. That's got to change. Like if you're going to figure out what your numbers are, you have to know what your numbers are. So you're going to have to figure out what are your expenses. Let's list off what are expenses, by the way, because some people look at me and go, expenses, I don't even know what that means.
Marketing dues.
Okay, marketing, your MLS dues. Shelley? Licensing, okay.
Mileage.
Gas and food.
Gas and food, mileage. How about the car that you put the mileage on? Car maintenance. Marketing. Okay, what else? Signs.
That's marketing.
Yeah.
Closing gifts? gifts or?
Closing gifts maybe, okay? Say again?
Organizations that you can join.
Okay, so any membership fees that you might pay, including the membership fee we pay to belong to this company?
Oh, no, I'm thinking about like, yeah, that too.
Okay. What about your transaction fees? Is that a business expense? Probably, right?
CPA.
How about this wardrobe that I put on every day to come to work? I mean, is this not
It's
a
very
business
nice.
expense? Granted, it's not as nice as some of yours, but I still have to pay for it. It's still an expense, right? So understand that you need to get with an accountant. You need to figure out what your expenses are. You need to track your expenses. Here's my 2 cents on the quickest way to do that. Get 2 bank accounts, a personal and a business. Have 2 debit cards, a personal and a business. Only charge business stuff on your business account, only charge personal stuff on your personal account, and it's really easy to keep separate that way. You can give that account to your accountant and he will type it all in and work all the numbers and go, okay, your expenses are running you about this much. By the way, there's formulas out there on how much of an expense you should be spending on lead generation every year. Like, it's not a random thing. We know exactly how much you should be spending to make the money that you're trying to make. If you're spending 10% of your income every year on lead generation activities, you're too low. You're not spending enough money, which is handicapping you. I know that sounds backwards, but if you're not spending enough money on lead gen activities, then you're just slowing your business down, because that's one of the things that it's okay to spend money on. Does that make sense? Like, if you're going to spend money on a golf membership at a really nice golf club, and you're not going to go there and lead generate while you're there, then that might be one you should do away with for a while until you can actually generate enough business. All right, why are you smiling, Chris? Did you just buy a membership at a golf club? All right, so I'm going to use 30%, because I think 30% is a pretty good number. So what that says is that our total gross income, our GCI, we're going to talk about that today. Our gross income needs to be $130,000, which says that I'm going to spend 30% of my income on expenses, and I'm going to keep $100,000. We good? Okay. So now the question becomes, which way does this go? Here we go. My mother.
Your what?
My mother calling me.
What do you ask?
I'm in the gorge. I gotta call you back. All right. So let's talk about your business. How many buyers? How many sellers? How many? So does anybody know? Like, I've done this many buyers and this many sellers.
70% sellers, 30% buyers.
70-30. Okay. So for Chris, we would go. We're gonna change this one to 70.
'Cause I don't like to get property.
30. Okay? So what that says is that $91,000 of Chris's $130,000 is going to come from the listing side, and 30% of his $130,000 gross commission income is going to come from the buy side. Make sense? Pretty simple, right? It's just a matter of splitting it up, whatever yours is. I'll share my experience. I'm a listing agent. Like, I want to be a listing agent. I don't want to go show houses. I don't want to work with buyers. I don't like buyers. I'm a listing agent. Did you guys hear me? I'm a listing agent. Mine is always 60-40, and it pisses me off. Like, how do I get 40% of my business from the buy side? I don't want to work with buyers, but it happens every year. I get like 59-41, or it's always a 60-40 for me. So it's different for everybody. It depends on how you run your business, right? So we're going to use Chris's example. 70% is going to come from the list side. 30% is going to come from the buy side. If you haven't figured it out, this is the listing side, this is the buy side. We're going to go up both sides and figure this out. Chris, what's your average sales price?
About $415,000.
No, I'm sorry. What's your average commission on the listing side?
3.25%.
3.25%. Okay. Wow, I didn't know I was actually going to have a guinea pig in this is awesome. I don't have to make this up. All right, well, how about the buy side?
3%.
3% on the buy side. How do you get 3% on the buy side, Chris?
Buyer broker agreement.
Buyer broker agreement. Okay. So this says that $2.8 million of Chris's volume is going to come from the listing side based on a 3.25% commission on every deal he does. Make sense? Buy side, same thing, 3%, so 1.3. If you take the 1.3 and the 2.8, Chris is going to do 4.1 million in volume to make $100,000 in his pocket at those percentages. Let me be really clear. These are not your percentages. Everyone's percentages are different. If you don't know them, use kind of a basic number. Chris tracks his numbers, he knows exactly what his are. I know what mine are, I could put those in there as well, and that's what I planned to do, but I didn't. All right, average sales price on the list side,
It's about 420.
420, and on the buy side.
I think the buy side this year is like 400, it was right on.
Okay, so pretty close. All right, cool. All right, so if Chris's average sales price is 400 on the buy side, how many deals does Chris have to close in 2022 to make 1.3 million in volume or $39,000 in commission?
3.
3, thank you for that. You can do that?
I'm guessing.
Wow.
Good at math.
It's good, man.
Nice. All right, so 3. How many listings does Chris have to close? Chris, it's right here.
10.
Oh, I thought you said 4.
No, I said more.
Oh, more. Yeah, so Chris is a 70-30. He's got to do more listings, right? He gets a better commission there. He makes a little more volume there. So $91,000 of his gross commission income is going to come from the 10 listings he's going to close. So how many deals does Chris need to do next year? Total. 13. Good. Oh, I should did that right in your head. Just 13. Good. All right, so 13. Now the question becomes, how many listings does Chris need to take? And how many buyer-broker agreements does he need to get signed in order to close those deals? Because can we all agree that we don't close every listing that we take?
We did this year.
Okay, did this year, good. 3 to 1, okay. In a real traditional market where inventory is between 3 and 6 months and it's kind of a neutral, I think 3 to 1 is a more accurate number. I think today we're closing, this year we probably closed the majority of every listing we took, right? Because you would take a listing, you would get multiple offers the first weekend, and it would eventually close, right? There weren't a lot of things that expired or went away, but that's not traditional, and the market will shift back to a traditional market at some point. So how many listings does Chris need to take? What's Chris's conversion ratio from listings taken to listings sold? What do you think it is?
85%.
You're going 85%. All right, this year was 85. You said it was 100% this year.
Carryover to the next year.
Oh, okay, good. I'm glad you pointed that out. What's carryover, Chris?
It's listings I take right now in this quarter that I don't sell.
Okay, so how many people are going to take a listing in December? Do we all plan to take a listing in December? Is it going to close in December? Probably not, but hopefully, right? You take it on the 1st and the 2nd, you get a cash offer, they got to move it before Christmas, bingo. But you might get one around the 15th of December that gets a offer that's financed that closes in the middle. It's called carryover. Things are going to carry over to next year, and that's okay. So, Chris, you want to go 85%?
Yes.
All right, so 85% on his listing side. I'm going to ask you about buyers in a second. By the way, that didn't change. Chris needs to take 16 listings, signed listing agreements that are put onto the MLS for sale, 16 of them, to know that he's going to close 10 at an 85%. Chris, don't you have a listing in like Beatty or something?
You'd be surprised.
Pahrump or Mount Charleston or like?
Bringing down my average.
All right, so Chris's, possibly the listing Chris has in Pahrump, as an example, may not close this year. We are November 1st, you have no offers, so.
Yeah, I just had a price reduction.
And we're lowering, and we're doing a price correction, so it might happen for him. Good. So, price improvement, okay, whatever you want to call it, I'm sorry. Are you guys gonna cancel me now that I had the wrong word there? What? All right, so 85%, Chris, what's your conversion ratio on buy side? So here's what we're converting on the buy side. We have a buyer broker agreement. That's not what we're converting. We're converting buyers that we put under contract. We open up an escrow. How many of those actually close? Has anybody ever had a buyer fall out of escrow?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what do you think your number is?
It was 78% this year, but I'll go with 75 because I like round numbers.
All right, we're going to go 75. By the way, it always is going to be a lesser number than your listing size. Right? It's going to be a smaller conversion ratio than your listing size. All right, so now in order for Chris at a 75% conversion ratio, he only has to put 4 people into escrow because only one of them is going to fall out based on the 75%. If you guys see the numbers in the middle, these numbers that I've put here, those are NAR's national averages as of a couple of years ago. They haven't been updated in a couple of years. They probably have changed I haven't looked at that, but that was what the national average was at the time. Okay, so these are signed contracts, escrows, right? These are listings taken and put on the MLS. These are buyers under contract and opened escrow. Questions? No? All make sense. Pretty easy. Okay. All right, so Chris, so now on the listing side, we're going to have to know how many listing appointments you're going to go on. So here's an interesting concept, right? How many actual listing appointments do I need to go on? People's houses I need to go to in order to actually put 16 listings live on the MLS? How many listing appointments? So what's your conversion ratio there?
About 80%.
Okay, so about 80% of the time when Chris goes, let's see right here. So on a national average of 65%, Chris is at 80%. Okay.
Used to be 50.
Used to be 50. What changed?
Me.
Good. All right, so what that now says is that Chris has to go on 20 listing appointments. He has to get 20 people in 2022 to say, Chris, come to my house. I'm thinking about selling. I want you to come over and talk to me about selling my house. Only 20. If he gets 20 appointments and he converts it at 80%, he lists 16 of them, he converts it at 85%, he closes 10, and he makes $91,000. Does that make sense? Pretty simple, right? How about the buy side?
I got to argue and say the buyer side is higher because most people send my buyer broker agent, so I'd leave it at about 80%.
Okay. By the way, that's the national average is 80% on that one. So yeah, when you typically find a buyer, you can get most buyers to agree to work with you. Why is that typically easier in most cases? Say it
It
again?
doesn't cost them any money.
Yeah, it's essentially free, right? They're trying, you're providing a service for them that in a lot of cases doesn't cost them a lot of money. It may cost them a little bit of money, but it's not going to cost them a lot. Okay, so that says that Chris only has to have 5 people who sign a buyer broker agreement. He only has to get 5 signed buyer broker agreements in order to put 4 people actually in escrow to actually close 3 deals and make his $39,000. Make sense? Okay. Chris, how many people do you that say, hey, I'm thinking about selling, what's your conversion ratio to those people to people you actually get in front of? So appointments, how many leads do you need in order to see 20 people? Thinking the national average is 25% of the time.
Yeah, I usually get the appointment. I just may not always get the listing, but I usually get the opportunity.
Okay, so you want to give me a number?
60%.
I'm going to go 50, sorry.
I knew you were going to do that.
I know you. No, I'm kidding. So 40 people have to say to Chris over the next year, hey, I'm thinking about selling, and then Chris has to follow up. What causes us not to convert from here to here, typically?
Follow-up.
Okay, follow-up. So we do good follow-up, we do bad follow-up, we don't do any follow-up? What?
Well, you want to convert your 50%, that's obviously a good follow-up.
Okay.
If you're dropping the ball and waiting for them to call, that's going to skew it.
Okay, so we're not aggressive enough. We wait for them to give us a call because they said, look, we'll call you in a couple of months. Does this ever happen to anybody? Hey, listen, we're thinking about selling. Come and tell us what our house is worth. We want to meet with you. Oh, I don't have time. It's the holidays. You know what? It's just past the new year. Give me a couple of weeks. You know what? My husband's taking me out of the country for Valentine's Day, so maybe we can get together in March. Like, you'll have people tell you they're thinking about selling, but how serious are they actually about selling? Sorry, I'm already, I want to hurt your neck. So it's not uncommon. Don't feel like this is a problem that, oh my gosh, someone said they wanted to sell and that I didn't get in front of them. Because just because they said they wanted to sell or you had a conversation about that doesn't always mean that they're serious or that they're committed to doing that, right? So how about the buy side, Chris? How many buyers do you do? How many people have to raise their hand and say, I want to buy a house that you actually get in
Do
front
you
of?
think I would put?
Well, national average is 65%.
Okay, 65%.
I think you're probably at 75%. Because I think you probably ask more questions on the phone than most people do. You know the questions to ask, right? You're better than you were 5 years ago. As you pointed out, not me. These are your words, not mine. Okay. So at 75%, he only has to have 7 people say, hey, I'm thinking about buying a house. 7 people say, I want to buy a house. Chris actually gets to meet with 5 of them and get a buyer-broker agreement signed. He gets 4 of them to actually sign a RPA and open up an escrow, and it gets accepted by the other side. 3 of them close, and he makes his $39,000. Make sense? Okay. So now the question becomes, of all of the people that we talk to about real estate, not just people that we talk to, has anybody ever gone to dinner and talked to a waiter? Yeah, we've all done that, right? Not a single person here hasn't done that. How many of you have talked to them about real estate? A few. Okay, that's about that's about 30% of the hands, right? So not every conversation that we have is about real estate. You ever called somebody on the phone and said, hey, is your mom there? And they go, no. You go, okay, great, I'll call back later. That's not a conversation. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about having a conversation with somebody about real estate. And when you're done having a conversation with them, you know a couple of things. Are they interested or thinking about buying or selling a home? And probably what is their time frame? For me, that's what classifies as a real estate-based conversation. Okay, does anybody have a better description of what they consider a conversation in real estate? I want to know what their plans are, and I would like to know what their timeline is. If I know that, I feel like I've had a conversation. So in this case, Chris, what's your conversion ratio of having that conversation to getting somebody to let you be considered as someone to say, hey, I am thinking about buying, or someone to say, I am thinking about selling?
I use the 10% rule.
I'll use the 10%. Okay, good. So it's about 10%. Does anybody do internet leads in here? Does anybody know what the average conversion ratio of an internet lead is? Say it again. Internet leads?
3%.
3%? Shelley?
5%.
5%? Okay. If you're just starting to do internet leads, your conversion ratio is somewhere between 1% and 2%. If you've been doing them for a while, you could get to 3 or 4%. If you're a pro and that's what you've been concentrating on for years, you can probably get to 5% because you fine-tuned where they're coming from, you've fine-tuned your scripts. So but by the way, that doesn't say 10%. Like, how do we get the conversion ratio up to 10%? Other types of leads, sphere of influence. Like, does anybody in here have a poor conversion ratio in your sphere of influence?
Not anymore.
Not usually, right? I mean, if it's your sphere, someone who knows you, they like you, they would do business with you if they had a need to do business, they're probably going to work with you, right? I mean, it's not very often that your grandma hires someone else to sell her house. That's happened to me. That's from experience, right? That happened to me. Thanksgiving, drive up, sign in the front yard. That's weird. They must have put that sign in the wrong yard. Grandma, what's going on with the sign in the front yard? Which house would you like me to move that to? Oh no, I'm selling my house. Right? So it's not very often. She did like me, by the way. It was just her attorney got in the middle of it. So anyway, it's about a 10%. So in order to get 40 people to say, hey, I'm thinking about selling, or 7 people to say, it's about a 10% conversion ratio. So Chris has to have 472 conversations in 2022 about real estate.
That's almost one a day.
472. That's only 1 a day. Yeah, maybe 2 a day. It's 3 a day if you only work 4 days a week. Doesn't seem like a lot, is it? But let me ask you, is it better to look at it as a 472 number, or is it better to look at it on a weekly basis? Probably weekly, right? Let me show you the power of numbers real quick. So that's really a pretty small number, 472. All right, that's a pretty small number. Now, what's caused that is because his average commission on the list side is so high, substantially higher than probably most people in the business, okay? And his average sales price is about normal. Some of his conversion ratios are a bit higher, right? So let's just tone this back down to what it would look like if we were, based on NAR, if we were the average. Are you messing with me again?
Saying that it's off.
Oh, the internet crashed. Oh, that's cool.
It's Google.
All right, well, I'll do that in a minute. Yeah, so let's switch over to our weeklies and our monthlies. So at 472, Chris has to have 41 conversations a month, or 10 a week. Can you have 10 real estate-based conversations a week? Let me also point out, and you can't see this, but let me point out that on mine, this is with Chris having 2 weeks off during the year. Now, we're going to need to change that for Chris because he takes more like 6 weeks off. So let's go, what would that be? A whole quarter. He's only working 9 months of the year. Let's go with 10 and a half. So Chris is only going to work 10 and a half weeks. Hey, that's not a bad thing, right? I mean, who doesn't aspire to take 6 weeks off a year? I mean, that's why we do this, right? The freedom of the business, right? All right, so let's change that. So now Chris has to have, oh, look, it's only 10 conversations a week. It didn't change much. Because Chris's conversion ratios are so high, because his commissions are so high. 45 a month instead of 47 doesn't change by much. So he needs to get 1 seller lead a month, have 1 seller appointment a month, and he's going to average about 123. It's a bad number because his conversion ratio is so high, his numbers are so low, it doesn't convert over. Like Chris could literally work half the year and probably achieve these numbers. That's really more accurate, isn't it? Let's change that. Chris is going to work 7 months out of the year. Yeah, it just didn't change it much. 67, he has to write 1 listing, or 1 seller a month. He has to do 2 buyers a month, write written contracts that are accepted. He's going to close 1 of these a month, still not even 1 listing a month, right? So does this make it a little more pliable? Like we only have to do 16 a week. Who can't have 16 conversations a week? Some of us can't because we're not making that kind of money. But I mean, it's that easy, right? 16 conversations a week. Here's how I used to do it. Are we back online?
Yes.
Okay. 25%, 65%, 80%. Okay, do you see how the number has now substantially changed? He's got to have a lot more conversations a year because I've changed his conversion ratios. So this is why knowing what your conversion ratio is it's super important. Like if I'm telling myself that I'm at 80%, I convert at 80%, I'm great. Nobody converts like Todd does. My internet leads 10%, no problem. Yeah, easy. You know, be realistic with yourself. Don't lie to yourself about what your conversion rate is. And if you don't know, just track it for a while. It's fairly easy to track. There's tracking sheets out there you can use to track your numbers on a day-to-day basis. How many calls did I make? How many of those people told me to call them back at some point? How many appointments did I set? How many did I hold? How many did I actually get a written contract from? It's pretty easy to track if you're just willing to track it. But you can just see solely by changing just back to normal traditional conversion ratios, the number more than doubled, right? Now what if we said, well, on the buyer side, I'm only getting, I'm sorry, I told you guys backwards. This is the buy side. I have Chris all screwed up here, but the numbers will work out the same. Let's just say that I'm not using a buyer broker agreement, and I'm not, well, that didn't change as much. That didn't change this at all. Just change the number of leads I need to get. All right, so any questions about how this works? Like, here's how you figure this out. If you know that you want to do, in order to get to your number, you've got to do 10 closed deals, you divide this number by your percentage to get the next number. It's a division. Because some of you will spend like 20 minutes on the calculator going, wait, it doesn't seem right. This can't be right, right? It's 10 divided by 80 is what gets you the 16. So you divide yourself up the chart until you get to your number. And then you get to go figure out how many conversations you need to have a week. So Chris is up to 35 now that I've changed his ratios. So 35 conversations a week. It's not horrible. Where are you going to find your conversations at? Okay, so for her it's SOI mostly. For me it's SOI. I mean, that's where I have worked my whole career. I don't really do a lot of other, I don't have a lot of other pillars like Chris pointed out I should. I probably could do better if I did. Okay, so any questions about how these numbers work, how you can figure that out? I mean, do you have the formula kind of down? Got the conversion ratios, take a picture, yes.
Do you have a tracking sheet that you also use with this, or?
So yeah, I have probably 10 different tracking sheets that you can use to track whatever you want in the business if you want. I know I have 3 that are really good ones. If you want that, you can send me an email. Happy to send you a tracking sheet you can use to track your numbers with. Ultimately, it needs to be broken down so that you know in Excel, and it adds up automatically. You put your number in each day and it adds up for you, so you can decide what you're. How do we figure out conversion ratio by the way? I went on a listing appointment and I went on 20 listing appointments and I took 10 listings. What's my conversion ratio? 50%. All right, so it's how many did I go on and how many did I actually get? How many people told me today that they want to sell or this month, and how many of those people did I actually get in front of? So at some point I got an email, my mom told me that somebody told me they want to sell, I should call them. I've got a lead that says they're thinking about selling. How many of those people that I actually get in front of, that's your conversion ratio, the number of people divided by the actual written or people you met with.
So, based on this scenario, it would mean that if I work 5 days a week, as we know, I work 5 days a week, that means 7 people a day I was contacting about real estate. So if I have a database of, let's just say, 100 people, and I have to make 151 total monthly contacts, that means I have to have 51 other real estate conversations with either door knocking or open houses to talk to, or cold calling, where I'm having a physical real estate conversation where I'm actually saying, you want to buy, sell, or invest in real estate? And they say yes or no. And so I think that that's pretty low. I mean, 7 a day is pretty low for an all day, like 8 hours a day, to just have 7 conversations. I mean, I think it's completely right. I just don't think a lot of agents have 7 conversations in a day.
Well, I don't think anybody knows how many they're supposed to have. That's the biggest challenge. The challenge isn't whether we can or can't do it. The challenge is we don't know how many of them we need to do. We think we're killing it when we get to our 3rd one, but reality, our goal at the beginning of the year said we needed to have 7. So at 3, we're less than halfway there, right? So I've got to work either another hour or I've got to work another day of the week. But I've got to figure out how to get to the right number every week in order to make it work.
I think that also shows, like, if you're looking at the numbers and the money or the revenue is not happening, you can see, you have to figure out where the gaps are, whether it's the leads or the conversion. Maybe you need to practice more in your scripting or whatever the case may be. So I think that's great.
Yeah, so our coaching call last week, 2 weeks ago, was exactly about that, was about the gaps in the business. Who's really, tell me one part of the business you're really good at. Anybody?
Cashing the checks.
Cashing the checks. All right. So how do we bridge between Chris cashing the check and Chris having the conversations? Like, he's really good at cashing the checks. I get it. So am I. Well, my wife's good at that. No, I'm kidding. I'm better at it than she is. She is. I have to tease her about it though. So how do we, like, oh yeah, I love to cash checks, but do you love to make phone calls?
Yes.
Oh wait, I can't stand over here. No, you don't. Oh, you actually do like. You're kind of weird.
But I don't like to pay people. So accountability is the big reason to bridge that gap. If I had to pay someone when I did make the phone call, I don't like it when they cash my checks.
Oh, okay. So your accountability is that you write someone a big check that, yeah, like that's really a pretty good accountability. Just pick anybody in your life that the last thing you'd ever want to do is give them money. Most time the example is an X something. You would never want to pay them any money. You write them a check for $5,000.
Hey, Todd?
Yeah.
So this looks very, very easy, but it only works if you actually do it on a weekly basis, because the second you stop doing it, those numbers start to compound, and then there's no way you're gonna, it makes it harder and harder to catch up. And so it only works if you start this at the beginning of the year, or start it and work through it. And then without fail, this business is a mathematical formula which you just demonstrated. And if you actually did it, you would actually far exceed these numbers, I almost guarantee.
Yeah, I'm pretty conservative in my numbers, I can assure you of that. So yeah, if you actually did talk to, listen, if you had 7 real estate conversations a day, you would kill this number. You'd meet this 7 months into the year.
Is that Monday through Friday?
For me, it is. Yeah, I mean, I'm a Monday through Friday. I don't like to work on the weekends. Not saying I never have. I'm just saying that's not my choice. I don't set appointments on weekends because I don't like to do it. So yeah, you can do 5 days a week. I always do things based on the 5 days a week on my team and stuff too. So yeah. So That's a good point. I mean, it's impossible. Numbers compound. Does everybody know how money compounds in your bank? Well, so do numbers, and they can compound negatively just as fast as they can positively. So if you're not doing it on a weekly basis, look, if you're not tracking it on a weekly basis, you're lost the first week anyway. And here's what I would tell you. Figure out what your number is for 2022 and start now. One of the biggest challenges we have is that success looks like a hockey stick. Does anybody know what a hockey stick looks like? Right? Like if you lay it down flat, it actually kind of climbs a little bit. The stick gets a little thicker as you get to the paddle end, right? It kind of goes up, but then suddenly it just takes off, right? That's what success looks like. You're going to plug along, you're going to plug along, you're going to plug along. The question is, how long does it take you to get to the curve? Because once you get to the curve and it takes off, then everything becomes a lot easier because you're meeting all of your goals and exceeding everything you thought you were going to do. How long is it going to take to ramp up? If it takes you 3 months to ramp up, guess what? You don't have 12 months anymore, you've only got 9. And you probably only have 8, because if you take something in December, it may not close this year, right? So the year starts to shrink down on you as well. So I would tell you to start this process now, start this tracking so it becomes the habit for next year, and you're not trying to fumble through how to create that habit and figure that out. All right, we have about 8 minutes. Any other questions? Chris, I think your point about the gaps in the business, one thing I'm really good, so I came into the business in 2006. Does anybody know what happened the next year? Yeah, the market crashed, right? Like everyone would say, well, thanks, Todd, it's your fault the market crashed. I mean, you're the one that just came into the business, right? It's my fault, I'll take the blame, I'm okay with that. But the bottom line was, what I learned during 2007, 8, 9, 10 was that I could take a listing over the phone. I didn't need to get in my car and drive to somebody's house, because at that time, they were gonna make this much money. It didn't matter what their house looked like. Like I'd have people tell me, oh, I've done $100,000 worth of work on my house. Hey, that's great, and I hope you've enjoyed it while you've lived there, but you're in a short sale situation, you're gonna make 0 money, and so it doesn't matter, right? In fact, it might hurt us because that puts you above the rest of the neighborhood, and now the bank's gonna want even more money, and we may not be able to get that offer accepted. Like it was an opposite reaction of those improvements. But I learned that I don't really have to go on a listing appointment to take a listing. Does anybody else have that mentality? How many of you have actually, or that you would prefer to take a listing on the phone rather than going to the house? Ellie?
No, I have, but I prefer to go to the house.
Yeah, he prefers, why do you prefer to go to the house?
So I know what I'm getting into.
Yeah, and you like people,
Well, I do.
right? I mean, he's a networker, he likes to be in the mix, right? Like that's, if I could talk to somebody on the phone and make whatever money I'm gonna make because I could talk to them on the phone, send them the paperwork digitally and make it really easy for them and me, it's more easy for me than them, of course, but why wouldn't I do that? But some people just don't think like that. Like they need that interaction. Jason?
What about building up the rapport and working for referrals and spending some time in their house?
Yeah, no, it's a great business plan. I'm not saying my business plan is the greatest. It's just my business. This is how I do business. Everyone's is going to be different. And so, yeah, building rapport. Also note in my business, I mostly work in my sphere of influence. Like I would say every single year, 85% of my businesses come from my sphere. So it's someone who's referred me, it's somebody, I mean, when I call on the phone, they already know why I'm calling. I'm not trying to get past that, hey, will you talk to me about selling your housing? I've granted, I call it granted approval before I even call. Shelley?
So speaking of that, I think that makes it, when you talk about like every year you're going to redo this, your income is going to be the same. But as you are talking about your referral business, you're going to get more referral business. Your lead still stays the same, but your conversion is easier, right? So you count yourself this year, next year will probably be easier because you've got a lot more referrals. You're still going to hit the 1,000 whatever leads, but your conversion is going to be much higher.
Well, if your conversion ratio goes up,
Right.
then the number of conversations you have will go down. So, but the challenge there is you have to track it. You got to know.
Correct.
I got to know what my conversion ratio is. If I'm telling myself I'm an 80% converter and I'm a 50% converter, I'm going to be very sad that week between Christmas and New Year's, right? But if I track it and I really know, then I know how many calls I get to make, or how many conversations I get to have. Everybody have a conversation at a grocery store before?
Yeah.
I took a listing at a grocery store once. Crazy, right? No way that happened. Absolutely happened.
So one of the things I learned from doing this is that, people lie all the time, but the numbers never do. And I would lie sometimes to myself about my real conversion until I started tracking it. And now in every system I have, in my dialer, in my pipeline report, and all of my business flow, I have conversion numbers on what I actually am doing, and what the average sales price is, what the average commission is. Because when I business plan just like this, my numbers were horrible when I started. Like, I could make 100 phone calls and most people wouldn't even answer. But it was amazing as I progressed and went forward and tracked my numbers, how people even started answering more. when I
Well,
would call
why
them,
do you think they started answering?
Because I wanted them to.
No, because you started calling better numbers.
That's true.
Who in here, somebody last week was calling the phone book. Who was that? Right? I mean, how many answers are you going to get in the phone book compared to your sphere of influence? Higher ratio in your sphere of influence, right? But so many of us don't want to bother our friends and our family. Oh, I don't want to inconvenience them. I don't want to, that's awkward. Is it? What's more awkward is you can't take them a Christmas gift. That's awkward. You can't go to the Christmas party because, you don't have that $35 to go buy that white elephant gift. Oh, it's under $20. Sorry, under $20.
Inflation.
Inflation.
It's 30.
It's 35 now. Oh, good, we get to raise the price. No, I mean, your conversion ratio is going to change the number of, but you're not going to know that. Like, Chris didn't know that people weren't answering the phone. Let me tell you a quick story about a young lady I coached for about a year. Do I have time? Beta, mine? We got 3 minutes. This is a 6-minute story. I'm going to cut it down to 3 minutes. So listen, this agent comes to me and she says, look, will you coach me? And she said, the reason I'm picking you is because somebody told me that I should pick someone to coach me that I'm afraid of. And I said, I'm afraid. She said, I'm afraid of you. And I'm like afraid of me in what sense? Just that I know you're going to hold me accountable, that I know that you're not going to listen to my BS, that I know that whatever I tell you, you're going to see right through the stories I've been telling myself for years. So I said, great, let's talk about that. So we went down that path. This is about September of a year. And she says to me, I said, okay, let's talk about what are you doing? What do your activities look like? So I'd go to the office. She had like a cubicle, and I noticed there's signs up everywhere that say, I'm lead generating, leave me alone, don't bother me. She'd put signs out, she'd put chairs out so that people wouldn't walk back and interrupt her while she was doing her lead gen. I said, okay, what are you doing for lead gen? For sell by owners and expires, that's what she was doing. Great, where are you getting your lead? Where are you getting the numbers from? Well, I mine those out of forsalebyowner.com, Craigslist. I do that on the weekends. I spend the weekends mining my phone numbers so that I have numbers to call during the week. Great. So let's do this. So she's calling. First week, no results. She's doing it. I'm physically sitting in the office watching her sit in her cubicle do this, and it had been for a long time. So we go down this road for a while, and I'm just like, look, I'm really confused on why you're not having some success. Like, you should have gotten lucky once. Like, if you were doing it this long and you're that good, so let's hear what your scripts sound like. So I would sneak over, I would hide kind of behind this little retainer wall, sit down, and I would listen to her talk on the phone. Guess what? Horrible on the phone. Like, talking to her on the phone was worse than talking to me. I was like, Bridget, what are you doing? Like, stand up, smile. Like, let's get some energy. Let's figure out why, let's get some better, here's some scripts, let's practice those, right? So we went down that road. She got better on the phone. She had one or two, but still nothing that was like, man, as much time as you're putting in, you should be able to have converted much more than this. So I finally said, listen, I want you to go for the last 24 months of your business. I want to know every single deal you've closed, and I want to know where every one of those deals came from. Because I wanted to know how many for sell by owners and expireds, because that was her main pillar, had she converted into money. How many do you think? In 24 months? Two. She had done like 35 or 40 deals, and 2 of them have come for sell by owners and expireds. And like, does this make sense to you? Like, your majority of your time is spent calling for sell by owners and expireds. Your entire weekends are blown up because you're sitting on the sofa mining phone numbers, because at the time her husband wouldn't let her buy phone numbers. I'm like, that's crazy, but okay. So you're taking every weekend and you've closed 2 deals, I think it equated to around $10,000. I'm like, does this make sense to you? She's like, no. I said, okay, where did the rest of them come from? Most of them had come from networking. She had been involved in some different things, and most of them have been from either door knocking or networking. I said, okay, here's the next rule for the next 45 days. You're not allowed to come to the office. Don't show up at the office, but I pay for that. My husband's gonna, I don't care. You're not coming to the office. Go find networking events. Go back to the Clark County School District meetings that you used to go to every week because you had a daughter in school. Go to those meetings. Well, my daughter's not in school. I don't care. Go to those meetings. Look, most of your business came from Clark County School District meetings because she's a great networker. She's great in person. Remember her voice on the phone was horrible? Well, she's opposite of that face to face. So here's what happened. We got down to the end of the year. She had done some stuff. It was getting better. Things were getting better. And then we turned over to the new year, and she did more business in the first 3 months of the next year, the first quarter, than she had done in 24 months. By simply changing her activity, because she tracked what her results were and found out the time she was spending didn't equate to the money she needed to make. So she just changed. She just went outdoors. She started to network. She went to meetings. She went and did more door knocking. She did more business in the first quarter than she had done in 24 months for 2 reasons. She tracked her numbers and she understood what she was good at and what she was bad at. She thought she was great at calling on the phone because she set up this bunker. She brought food and water. Like, she didn't have to leave her desk for 4 hours a day. And she could just pound those numbers all day long. She was great at that. But she wasn't good at converting those. But when she'd go out into public and go face to face and network with people, it was super easy for her. So knowing your numbers can change your life if you're willing to track them and find out what they are. Huge story. By the way, after the first quarter of the next year, she divorced her husband. She got to buy for sub-arms expired. That was always, I know that sounds really shitty, but that was always my joke with her. So I'm like, well, good, now you can buy for sub-irons expired arms. I don't know. That was weird to me, but anyway, any questions? Guys, I'm big about knowing what your numbers are. If you're confused at all, if you want to know what that looks like, if you want tracking sheets, just send me something in the app and we can, I mean, if we have to meet, we can meet. I would tell you that if you're at a position in your business where you've been doing this for a while and you just can't figure out why it's not clicking, you can't figure out why it is, you're not, I mean, you're putting in the time, you're just not getting the results you think you should be getting, you should look into some coaching. I'm not saying I'm a great coach. Brandon's a great coach. I watched him coach. Chris coaches. All the brokers coach. Other people coach. I'm not saying you got to get a coach inside the company, but you probably got to get a coach because we see things from up here that you can't see in the day-to-day trenches. And we can help you make those adjustments and change things in your business that will later change things in your life, right? Because that's what money does sometimes, is it changes your life. Whether it's good or bad, I don't know, but it does. All right, any other questions? Told you it was a 6-minute story. I couldn't do it in 6 minutes. All right, anything else? We good? Don't forget about the potluck on the 17th. Your installation on Saturday. You still got time to get in and go to that? Seems like there's something else. She's gone. All right, I don't know. All right, thanks for coming.